Yeah, I just want to talk about that.
Yeah.
Before we start.
All right. I just hit record. What I wanted to do too, as I'm setting this all up.
And just to figure out the thing that makes the most sense. Are we going to feed each other? Are we going to back channel as interpreters? Or are we going to remain in character?
I think that did you watch the video yet?
Not all the way through. I watched some of it.
I think if you're going to back channel, you have to wait and make sure it fits in. Because there was a few times where you back channeled and it wasn't I wasn't there in the story yet. You know what I mean? So
meaning I back channeled as
I didn't say the joke
as
yet.
Sadie.
Yeah. And then you would
interesting.
You would do the laugh or something. And then sometimes I thought the back channeling was a bit distracting. If you could have just been try not to back channel with your hands if you don't have to. Make that the last resort. And then if you are wait for a pause, wait for the spot. Because I just feel like even just watching it, and then also we were feeling pressure to end for the other person, and I know for me, when I see you ready to go, it adds some pressure for me.
It adds pressure. That makes sense. So just to clarify, sorry, are we back channeling as interpreters or as?
I think we could do both. I think we can be the character, and then I think we can be. Or you know what I mean? I think we can...
whatever's natural at the moment. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
I also need to mess with my lighting before we actually go for it.
I wrote some for the next deliver practice session. I wrote those first few minutes were really hard for me to get into a groove, and watching it back was rough. And I don't know. I think we know better, but I think we were stuck on let's get it all in. And
sure.
I have not taken the origami test yet.
The origami.
I don't know what it's called. I'll take it. And then that too. I think a lot of my struggle was understanding the Gestalt, and I was composing as I was planning. There was no rehearsal. There wasn't a full Gestalt, a full comprehension in my head. I also feel as soon as you watch that video, you can see our normal energy is pretty low. Especially for who we are, it's really low. We were kind of not in it. I feel bad. So that's why I want to get to it again as soon as possible. So thank you, because I'm excited. We had so many positive comments about making it accessible, and I know it wasn't, as soon as we were done, I knew it wasn't my best. And so I want to come back and try again. So be more committed. Well, I'm going to, this time, make sure I have a clear R, at least. I don't think I had clear R's, and I was rushing myself.
Interesting.
I think, do we approach this as a play or approach it as an interpretation? There's got to be, a different combination where we're kind of doing both.
Yeah, well, now that we've kind of talked about it, we can just see what happens today. I think if we say, we're doing it this way, and then something comes up where it's
you're garbage.
If we say, we're doing a play, and then I want to back channel to you as the interpreter or something, for example, that's kind of outside of that realm, and then I have this internal, I'm sorry.
You're sad.
I know, this place is lousy.
Stop.
It's not lousy, it's really expensive, but it's going on me. So if something comes up that makes me want to step outside of that realm, I think it's going to throw me because I'm going to have this internal moment, Well, so we can just kind of play it by ear.
Yeah, I'm going to get my notes out. And then, okay, who's our audience this time? We need
Let's talk about that.
We need a clear. I don't want to make you my audience because I want to break out of interpreting for my team. So who's our audience? Do you have anybody clear in mind?
Well, who would normally listen to this podcast?
Well, great. I think everybody should listen to this podcast. I think it has a lot of important information in there, and I think it's an important thing. And so I'm trying to think who. I'm just gonna keep in mind without saying names.
I was just gonna say that.
that last person who messaged us and said, like, thank you, that's awesome. I'm going to put that person in my mind, female from North Jersey. So that's going to be my audience.
I have someone else in mind as well that I know and I think was the kind of person that would listen to this sort of thing.
Okay. All right, great. So yeah, what's our target register? Because it's not. I mean, it's kind of formal because there's like no interruptions. I feel like they've planned this. It's kind of rehearsed.
I feel like it's not formal just because formal. Interesting. I see what you're saying now. Because it's not like with each other. They're familiar with each other.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not necessarily with the audience.
Right.
So,
I mean, even for us, it should lean more towards formal, like...
Yes.
A formal register. And they use big words, which in my twisted brain is formal. I know there's no, like, scale, but in there, you know what I mean.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
I had my notes here that I thought it was important to talk about before we moved on to this one, that like we both left that feeling like, yeah, that wasn't our best and we did a lot of weird things. But that I'm glad we still put it out there because when we go to work every day, there are so many times that we are not our best. And if we're going to do like an applied practice and only judge like the perfect take, right, then it's not a realistic view.
It's not authentic.
It's not authentic, yeah. So I appreciate that.
Silver lining.
Yeah, but also that both of us, like, I mean, I don't know if it's like when you go through the ITP, like, it's supposed to be like your first rendition, but I've seen plenty of students' work to know that I'm getting like version 82.
The 7th. Yes.
Right.
I mean, you could clearly see that was cold for us, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I appreciate...
Not even like room temperature, that was cold.
So I appreciate the willingness. So thank you to be, vulnerable and cold and like let's be honest with what we do. Which sometimes,
every day.
sometimes isn't the best. Or we definitely like walk away feeling like, oh, that could have been so much better. Okay. Right. All right. So
it just gives us something to talk about, right?
For sure. So number 2 is called Diet Culture is Way More Than Just Diets. Let's do a little bit more prep here. And it's show notes.
Ooh.
We should have read that last time.
We're so smart.
Have you ever heard the phrase diet culture and wondered what the heck it was all about? In this episode, Sadie and Naomi do a deep dive into what diet culture is, what it means to be anti-diet culture, and all the ways that diet culture shows up in our lives far beyond whether or not we eat ice cream.
Well, I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, me too.
Because after this, I'm going to go get ice cream.
Perfect. Okay, so what do we think the goal is?
Mm-hmm.
Any predictions? Anything you want to do?
Great. So I would say possibly the goal is to challenge mindsets that have been established and ingrained in us. It could also be to convince that diet culture is not healthy, contrary to its name. Like it's